Ready? Good. Okay, 6:15. So I'd like to call this meeting to order. At 6:15, we have, oh, sorry, I call this meeting to order. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I so move.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, let's stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, now to have a public comment.
Wagner. I didn't make it on the agenda by noon on Friday, but I did want to bring some materials. And it has to do with the condition of county roads. And I know Todd, you talked about a company that would give some schooling. Yep. On late operation. I guess I would ask that, you see what their program is, so you can overlook it and maybe visit with the secondary roads department. And I guess I would like to say, question needs to be asked. How are you going to eliminate or stop the practice of throwing coarse particles into the ditch and bringing dirt up onto the roadway? I have some materials here from 2017. And we've had this discussion about materials before. With our soft rock in this county, the more it's manipulated, the more it gets segregated, the more it gets degraded. At that time, John Herzberg asked me if I'd be on the agenda, so he put me on. That was his suggestion. I brought some samples of rock. I also made a little letter to the editor, talked about the moisture, $20-some thousand of county taxpayer money that bought water because of the high moisture content. It also has a high percentage of fines, which I brought a couple samples here tonight off of our roads as they are right now. Very high percentage of fines. That does not contribute to stability. When you get into mixed designs, asphalt concrete, that absolutely does not work. It does not make a good, stable mix. It does not make a good, stable roadway on a granular surface road. What I did through 2017, I brought some material from another quarry, uniform graded material. I brought from the quarry, I got a sample. This is a finer portion of the sample. This is the coarse particles. This is all one sample. This here does nothing to add stability to what we presently have. Samples. This one here, there's a lot of dirt in it. This one here, there's a lot more. I can have these, they have to be washed, dried. I can have those done and the gradation sent to you by next week's meeting at my expense. And all this other sampling in 2017 was at my expense. When you spec out equipment, you don't want something, you want something of quality. And I guess I don't understand why this is not done on the aggregates for our gravel roads. I hear comments like, well, it's spring in Iowa. Well, I don't know where everybody's been, but it's been that way since I can remember. That's a long time ago. If you want to improve things in this county, why do you keep adding this to this? If If you think you're gonna end up with anything like this or this, you're dreaming. I've heard things on equipment. Maybe it's only so many thousand, which is not a huge bite out of the total county budget or secondary roads. But as a percent from one machine to another, it's huge. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe county engineer receives $10,000 per month wages, and correct me if I'm wrong. I was told that by somebody. A taxpayer said, from the highest price machine you discussed at, I think it was the last meeting, to the one that was voted on, was 17,000. That's 1.7 times a person's monthly wage. That is very significant when it's put into proper perspective. I would assume machines were spec'd out, specifications were met, otherwise you'd throw the bid out. In the past, I've heard a conversation, well, the Corey said this or that. When you spec out a pickup, you spec out a machine, you write the specs, not the person you're buying that vehicle from. You either pay now or you pay later. I've seen plenty of paying later because that is what we presently have, because we put this, which is 50%, 47, I can't remember. I've got the numbers at home. But anyway, why do you keep repeating the same process when we have the same situation every year? So I guess I would ask, if we're going to go along with a county official being paid and says, well, I want this machine up here at this level. Well, how come nobody does anything about getting good aggregate at this level? They're not staying consistent in the message that's being given out. There's been a lot of things happen last year. I was denied being put on the agenda. I think the past chairman of the board, apparently either his ego or his humiliation, he didn't want to hear the facts. There's still facts out on that M63 project. The plans show for a different slope than what is being placed or what was placed. There again, the flatter the slope, it took more rock. If you could save money, you don't need that rock out there. Why don't you spend it and put it where you need it? Go to some other roads today. I've heard a lot about secondary notch or secondary ditch, I guess, from the county engineer. I disagree with that. It's a man-made notch or cut, and it does not let the water get into the ditch. It runs down that, it creates a channel, it runs down that channel, and as it increases in distance, the energy gets greater, it cuts, and it cuts, gets down to the bottom where it finally has enough to where it can run off into the ditch. So I guess that's one thing, if you have somebody come in and talk to the secondary roads employees, I think in pre-screening that person or that company, how are you going to address this situation? And I'd be more than happy to drive with that person and say, this is it. I mean, this is not opinion. These are the facts. And one other thing I thought about today, there's a lot of good ideas, a lot of people. I don't know how many employees are in the secondary roads department, but why don't they get input from them? And what can we do better to improve the conditions to save money? And when we save money, I'm not just talking here today, next month, this fiscal year, I'm talking down the road. Interested seen Judy received she read off a email letter that she'd received from a landowner, taxpayer, about her road. Maybe if something would have been done back in 2017, Judy, you wouldn't have got that letter here in 2023. And that's my point. Are we looking down the road or just to the end of our nose? And there again, you know, you've got employees, they've got to have some good ideas. If you gave them each a questionnaire, they don't have to sign it and say, I really want to know what can be done. You're out there every day. Give me your ideas and what can be done to make improvements, because in the long run, that's going to save money. Now, if we don't have anybody that has any good ideas, then I guess we do have a real problem. So anyway, I just want to bring this because I've kept this because it's my expense for that testing. And seeing is believing. These are the facts, not an opinion. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Tom.
you.
Okay, any other public comments? Gravel and all the,
What was that?
on all these things and samples, I talked to JD about that yesterday, another person called the same concerns. So I think in the next, maybe board communication might talk about some ideas we had here at the end. So appreciate you bringing that in.
Thanks.
Okay, any other public comment? If there's none, then we'll go to engineer update. He's not here. We got that online, an email for him. We had the permits and his application he sent out. Did you guys see that?
Yeah, I did.
Which I like. We got some wording on there to protect.
Yes, I thought it's really good.
Contractor messes things up and they have to fix it because they have a lot of issues with that. Yeah, so we have a document here that is way better that does, did have a question on that, which you guys might not have printed it, I don't know. but
I printed it.
Where he highlighted after construction, granular surfacing shall be added to the road at the applicant's cost. Does that cover if they tear up a paved road? Is that what the next section is? You read that, all the costs of repair work costs? You see that?
It looks like it.
Like a paved road would be in section H, you think? Okay. That's good. I'm glad we have it.
I think so.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what I thought.
So we have a document now that they have to sign, that if they mess up stuff, they have to fix it. That's a huge, good thing. Okay. So we'll go ahead, those two permits are okay if they sign that. Do we need to vote on those or not? I don't think so. We just give the okay on A
Yeah, I
and
think
B.
he just told us about them last week. We
Yeah, he
didn't vote
told
on
us. Yep,
them. We
that's
didn't
right.
vote on them, so.
Okay, so we're good there. Number 4. Number 5, we have a moratorium, extending a moratorium that's already in place. It'd be number 25, or the maps right here. Does everybody have one of those? You got one? Does Todd have one? I got an extra one here. It's the same moratorium that's already in place, and it was put in place to work on our,
You have an extra one, Jake.
yeah, to work on our ordinance, and started this last year working on it, and there's a new board here, we just finished our budget and all those things coming to an end. We're gonna talk a little bit about tonight. It'd be responsible to have this in place while we work on that, keep it in place, so. Everybody's had a chance to go over, that's the same exact one that the county attorney put together for us.
It's the same one as we did,
Yeah, just
you did
changed the
before,
date.
yeah, okay. So I printed that one out too, so, okay.
Yeah, so Carl put this together, so we could have time, and if we get done in a month or two, we can just turn it off, so.
Okay.
We can turn it off just like we turned it on, so.
Okay,
That would be, what's in front of us, and that's what we're talking about, so. I guess we need to know if there's a motion to extend that moratorium,
I'll make the motion.
okay?
I will second that.
Second. Okay, any discussion on this? Did we talk it through clear enough? We're going to extend the moratorium to have time to work on our ordinance. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, resolution 25 passes.
Do you want to sign
Yeah,
it?
we can sign that.
Now. Got it? Okay, our next thing up there, number 6, is just to discuss, start this discussion. We worked on it last year, like I said, the board was changing, it has changed, and now we're here. So if we have our ordinance, what I thought maybe we would do is just kind of flip through it and highlight some general areas to start in, and this week we can start, if people have information or ideas or things, they can email them to us. And we all have read it before and concerns. I have several copies I've marked up over the last year or two. So maybe we'll just flip through it if we haven't, just kind of start talking together and where we think there's some issues to start going home and studying. Pages here of the ordinance. One thing that's simple is, I mean, as we start on what page this is. Page 3, maybe. Talked about even the price for wind turbine application. I studied some other ordinances and that's extremely low. For us to take the time to go through all that, and the zoning administrator too. That might be-
What section is
It
it,
would
Jacob?
be, okay, section 3.
Section 3, what number?
Just the very first paragraph.
Oh, the $250.
That's just something to think about. We can just
Okay,
look at some other ordinances and other things.
okay.
You go to section, this, I'll just, you guys jump in anywhere. I'm just, section 4. The next page. Lighting, says you have FAA lighting, and I've read some others ordinances, and we've talked a lot about it for the last year or two. They make radar sensing lighting that if planes are, a lot of ordinances have that, planes are in the area, they turn on, if not, they turn off. Something to study, so maybe not have such a intrusive red lights blinking if not necessary. In that section 4. If I skip these ones, if that's got anything. Let's see. You flip to page number 5 in section 4. The feeder lines. We talked about this last year. It says, not less than 48 inches. A lot of field tile vary at 48 inches. I think there's a lot of ordinances that have deeper, maybe 5 foot or something deeper, so you're under the tile. That's just something to study, see what you guys think.
Okay.
The minimum ground clearance, number 7, I don't know. I just highlighted that, like I'm not sure where that should be. Maybe study that a little bit. Of the blades.
Is there a place where it talks about the height
Yeah, well, that's, there isn't, and that's a
of
good
the
point.
turbine? Because I don't think we ever even put any limit to
Right,
the height of the turbine.
and that's what I was thinking, then things that are missing out of here, which would be
Okay,
total height. There's no, I mean, they can make a 1,000 foot tall if they want. There is a definition of total height on the second page, but it's just a definition. It doesn't give a parameter. The total height is something we need to look at. For safety, let's see here. Where am I at?
Setbacks, did you want to?
Yes, that's the big one.
setbacks definitely.
And it's my understanding from talking to people today that when people signed the things, or that Invenergy did do the setback from the property line.
Well, there's 2. If you go over these, we can go over that here. Before we skip there real quick, on number 8,
Okay.
I just had one thing I wrote down.
Oh, okay.
Number 8, right above them. It says if there's a signal interference and stuff, and this happens in a lot of these different sections, it says, shall take reasonable steps to respond to the complaint. Well, who defines reasonable? I think that should be a little more serious language with maybe money tied to it or something that makes them, because we're writing this to make sure people, not everyone will follow it. We need to have something to enforce it.
Okay,
And then you go on setbacks, that's the big one, setbacks are the big one for safety and other people. Okay, we've got 3 sections there. You see, we have inhabited of non-participant, we have inhabited of participant, and we have property lines, so 3 different categories. Now, each one of those, the last line of each one of those says an affected property owner may waive this setback. Okay, so anyone can waive these things, that whatever we put in place. Now, my personal thoughts are, we should only have property line setbacks. The inhabited and non-inhabited doesn't even matter. I don't think. I think if you own your land, you should be able to build a house there someday if you want to. So anyway, if that's there was property line setbacks, but if you look at that number 6 or letter C, you see that? It was 1.1 times the height. So if a turbine is 600 foot tall, it'd be 660 feet from the property line. Which, this is what jumped off the page to me a few years ago when I was reading this. In our own ordinance, we say 1,500 feet is the safety setback. Well, then by that math, you would have, what's that, 840 feet onto your place, farm, whatever, that you could safely build a house. So that's the problem. So whatever we agree is safe, for somebody to not have intrusion or liability, I think that should be in the property line, but anybody can waive it. I like that line at the end. If you choose to live inside that, you can. If you want to be paid for it, that's fair. But somebody shouldn't have that forced upon them without any say. So that is probably the biggest area we need to look at, those three.
Yeah, that's,
You guys have thoughts on that? I talk about that all the time, so.
well, I've heard of some other ordinances that have just recently been passed as far as setbacks, and they're very, a lot more stringent on, which I kind of like the idea of having, because they put a lot more protections in for non-participating. And also with the fees of the applications, whereas, $250 is nothing really.
Right.
The other part of that, and I don't know if the decommissioning is part of this or not.
Yeah, it's better back. We'll get to it.
Okay, I'll just wait then for that.
But we need to just go study some other situations and then look at what's safe, just some safe numbers. But and I talked a lot about this the last couple of years. Having that last line on there that says you can waive it if you want to, really a more, I don't know what the word is, strict setback or whatever, more, doesn't hurt anybody if they want to give it, anybody can give it up. So if our number is bigger, it isn't in concrete, people can sign off on that if they choose to. But somebody can't be unduly put in harm's way, so. So that's a big area, maybe to go home and look at, that's something to study as we go forward here. Our right of way, letter D, that's another thing, I'm not sure, whatever needs for safety and protecting things there, we just need to study that, 1.1 times the height what it is right now. I don't know much about radio communications, if that's good enough, these areas we need to study. Now, in our public areas, you see, they get a mile from the property line, which is kind of, I understand why they're doing that, I have a problem with that. It's interesting that that's a mile. Another ordinance says 600 the height of the turbine from everybody else's property line, so just something to compare. Okay, anybody have anything else on that? See here, the municipalities are 1 mile, that's something going on right now, from the city limits. We might want to reach out to Brandon, Shenandoah, and other cities, if there's any development, or then they might want to weigh in if they think they need a little, something for development, comes to the town. If that's not enough, something to think about. Okay. Number 5 is avoidance and mitigation of damages. Now, section 5. There's a lot of wording in here that I wonder about. We want to make sure we word this in a way that the county is completely protected. And some of the wording in that section, as you read through, and you guys read through and see what you think, I feel like is not necessarily in the county's favor to protect ourselves as we enter into anything with somebody, so. Decommissioning, that's what that is though, the decommissioning section is section 5, and that's a big deal. We don't want to get hung with the bill, and make sure there's money in place and to cover if somebody doesn't.
Yeah, so one thing is, would be nice to have either like an escrow or a some type of money up front where the county draws off the interest. And that's there for when
It's real,
we have decommissioning, so we're not stuck holding the bag,
right?
making sure that that's in there somewhere.
A lot of them I've read have that, so we need to make sure we've just got a sound, just like a deposit on an apartment, same way, make sure there's money in place. And that comes up here, where's that?
And isn't that the next step after
Yes,
the
after,
lawsuit?
yes,
After the approval,
if there is, yes, if a plan comes forward and it's approved,
yes,
and then we go on to work on the decommissioning, we want to make
to
sure
the
we have.
road use agreement and the decommissioning.
Yes, and
Yeah.
so we gotta make sure we have good wording and all that to protect us.
Yeah.
And like if you, kind of, the next section 6 is for non-commercial, see,
That's not us.
that's for people's, what's less than, that brings up, that's less than so many kilowatts. But if you look down there in the non-commercial, if I'm studying this right, there's a noise, not to exceed 55 decibel in the way they measure. I can't tell if that applies to the commercial. I don't, is it in there somewhere and I missed it? If it's not there, that should be there. There should be something to
Yeah,
govern whether, how loud something is at somebody's home or their property. Our
Yes, it's over here.
is over there.
It's on number 10 under section 4.
Our,
Yes.
yeah, there it is.
It's
Okay.
there.
And see, the wording of that, I missed that in highlighting.
Yeah.
It says during normal operating conditions. Well, that's kind of a loose wording there. For any period of time during normal operating conditions, well, if the wind's blowing an extra few mile an hour, do they get by with that? I don't know. So maybe make sure we check the wording of that. Our zoning ordinance is in place. It's been a long time since I read it. I need to read it again. It is very strict on being able to put additional noise on other property past the line, so from something industrial. So we might want to look at our zoning ordinance and compare that. That wording during normal operating conditions, that is concerning. I don't know if that covers it right. Okay, that is there. Okay, let's see. This previous areas, we can start working on that. The insurance, goes through, they're supposed to have insurance and all that stuff. Talked about it again, liability insurance, and it says $3 million for occurrence, $6 million for aggregate. That doesn't sound very high in a situation that's big. I'm a pretty small farmer and I carry pretty high liability, and then isn't a project anywhere near this big with this much with a beast. That's something to think about. Is that enough?
That's under the
Oh, sorry,
non-commercial.
section 8. Is that still non-commercial?
That's non-commercial.
So where is there? Did I miss that in the
I don't
commercial?
know.
Let's see. I might have missed that. Reformation. It might be back on the back. Of it. Sure, it is. If it is written there, we need to check for liability insurance. I'm sure it's somewhere. It should be. Yeah,
That non-commercial thing, I asked at the very beginning about it, and I said, it was confusing about the commercial and non-commercial.
right.
And it was like, the commercial didn't have to have the non-commercial, and somebody over the phone said, what we're talking about is non-commercial.
And that's what they're building. What's 100?
So there's confusion there.
It is confusing. So there's something to work on. Define what we're talking about. We have non-commercial, commercial. It does say the size of it, but I don't know enough. Let's see. Let's see.
Non-commercial is the definition at the beginning.
Yeah, your definition, what's it say?
It says a WEX which has a generating nameplate capacity of not more than 100 kilowatt, and which is intended to primarily reduce on-site consumption of utility power.
So 100,
So
the other
that-
one's more than 100, I think, is what it is. Yeah.
Not more than 100. So is that a private one if you put
Well, I
one
don't
on your
know. I
own?
guess I don't know how much they produce. So we need to figure that out. And have it split up better in here, maybe, when we make an ordinance. well, let's see. That kind of goes to the end of that. Some things that aren't in here, I noticed one little thing was an American study. And I've seen some of these from other counties, but we should have the safety manuals to the wind turbine they're gonna build. They have the manual how to build it and all the safety that goes along with it. We should have that. That should be in our ordinance to see their safety manual. And so that should be part of turning an application, should be turning in the safety manual to whatever wind turbine you're gonna build, so we know what's going on. So those are my ideas, are probably 100 more.
And the liability insurance says this is for anything.
That's the whole thing. Yeah,
That's the
true.
whole thing,
Section 8.
yeah.
I don't feel like I think we're getting
Yeah.
high enough. I think each turbine I've heard is $3 to $4 million to build. I don't know if that's right. I think that's what I heard. So we're talking about this. It should be higher, I think. So we need to study that and see what a good number is. Okay, so, and then we have road use and decommissioning on the back of it. That's the next section, if we can print it off for you. I didn't go through and highlight all these, but when we did this before, we kind of were studying this last year. What Todd said, I don't have it underlined in here, but I don't feel like there's the actual money in the bank for fixing the roads, and it's a lot of promises, and we're big enough. So we need to study that. I don't have it underlined.
And what's that?
Well, the other thing is I'd like to make sure
I
that
don't
we
have
have,
that one, I guess.
Okay. We can talk about, just start looking at that. The road use and decommissioning needs to be, road use especially, we just talked tonight about just people burying fiber optic in the roads this summer. And it was actually to connect the wind to go over to the substation, and they destroyed digging in our roads.
Right into the middle of the road.
And then they didn't, and right after the rock, they dug our road up, destroyed it, basically, made a mess of our new rocks, all that money. Tom was just talking about all the money we're losing on rock, and we only did, so, and then they don't come back and fix it. So we have got to have our roads protected for whoever's coming in and building stuff.
Is that one where they accepted a lesser amount?
That's a different one, that's a different time. This is a fiber optic crew,
Okay,
Kramer Construction is the name of them, was burying. Yeah, working for Mid-American Energy, I think that's right. So they dug right up the road in several places or ripped it in, and it's still a mess. Still a mess. And so, and we got nothing out of that deal, to my knowledge. So we need to make sure, the whole moral story is just like we did with that.
There's one section by my parents that is a washout, like.
Washing down.
everything's coming off the road.
what road is this?
And that's 290th.
Okay,
So half buried that runs through Coin is just to the west,
okay.
down by the trace.
Yeah.
You can't miss it.
Yeah, well, going up the hill by Morrison's in your house, like, trenching up the road.
Yeah.
Moral story is, no matter what this is, we're talking about, just like we made a better agreement for our people burying utilities, same thing as this, we've got to have a solid agreement that they have to fix anything they tear up. And that they can't not have the money to pay for it. We have a solid source of money that we can get if they.
well, and also to add to that, then I would want also to make sure that we get to define
Yeah,
the condition of the road
right.
so they're not saying, well, this is.
And there's a lot of fair wording to that, and I think what the thing that JD put together, Carl, that says, both people go out and agree together.
Yeah.
I think in that permit we had for the road, which is fair, will be fair, but we want to make sure we have
Cause I think that was part of the problem that we ran into in the this road over here that they tore up and kind of.
Yeah, there's a
said,
big
well, it
argument.
was bad
it's
anyway.
bad anyway, right?
Yeah.
So we just need to be careful, just like anything, and so that is a huge, there's lots of these plans out there we can look over and compare to ours, so just something, we gotta start somewhere. Very percent. So, and then we have decommissioning, the same sort of thing, just make sure the money's there to decommission whatever they go, if that happens. So that's kind of a real big, fast go through, but we'll just start, with so many things to work on, we'll just start studying through it, and comparing, and get us a model going that we can just then we can agree on what we think on each area is good. And then we'll be done, if we can get to the end of it. But we gotta get going.
Getting there.
Yeah, we just gotta get started, so. I've got my binder started here, so. And if there are people that have good ideas or ordinances they think do a good job of covering some of these things, we'd be happy to email them to us. And we can compare these sections and see what does best to protect our infrastructure and the safety of the people who live here, so. Anything else on that, you guys? Anything else? That makes sense? Okay. Well, I got us started, we got our talk started on that, we've got to get working on it, so, all right, number
So
seven.
is this, sorry, is this something then that each, next couple meetings we'll keep reviewing
We can just start this.
and just keep this process going, or is this something then?
I don't know if
Wait
we-
for a couple weeks. I know we're not meeting next week,
Yeah,
so,
we have 2 weeks, kind of think about it, and if we just take one section at a time,
yeah,
or if you find a good base ordinance that we can build off of, and then maybe change a little here and a little there and make it ours, and once we get done with it, we need to send it to attorneys to make sure it all. is
Right.
Cohesive.
Yep.
It's cohesive, yeah. So we'll start the process, so just start studying all those areas and see what makes sense to you.
Okay.
To do the best we can by the county. Okay, the next section should be easy, number 7 is, Harvard Rents called me, who's the clerk for Harlan Township. And they have another, person they'd like appointed, Larry Kirsch, who's doing an excellent job. They'd like us to appoint him to be a trustee. And I have his address and phone number if you need that afterwards, I'll give it to you. So they would like him to be appointed, and I'd like to ask for a motion for that.
I'd make that motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, a motion and a second, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Larry Kirsch, Harlan Township trustee. Okay, board communication. I just looked at the landfill meeting tonight, so it's fresh in my mind, I just came from it. Went through the budget. For next year. Looked pretty good, everything looks all right, talking about purchasing some sort of a pickup, replacing the pickup that's there, the engine out of the pickup, so. We're seeking some bids and looking at the pickups. I had a question on the Shenville building with the roof situation.
Yeah, that was one question I wanted to ask too.
Yeah, I called. They have not called me back. So,
That company that did it,
yeah, I called them, 3 days ago, or, well, actually longer than that. Might have been Monday that I called them, and, they have not called me back. I don't know that they've even been down there yet.
what was the
to
name of
look
that
at
again?
it.
I keep forgetting. The name of that company, do
Actually,
you remember?
You would ask me, I don't remember.
Well, that's fine, if you don't remember, we'll just,
Yeah.
yeah. Well,
I will call them tomorrow again, just to find out, so,
what's going on?
yeah.
That'd be good. That's all I have, this, my question there. Oh, and on the rock, I did have a call, this is something interesting, I visited with JD for just a second about. Okay, we're gonna haul rock, it's spring in Iowa, all this stuff. Well, in the spring, it makes sense to haul clean rock in the spring, because it presses in, that's what I do in my own driveway. And I asked JD, he's the engineer, to think about that, talk about that, but the way the budget works, okay, we have so much money, to spend until July, and then July gets new money to rock again. There's big rock hauls normally in July and August, in the summer when it's dry and the rock won't go in. And a lot of times then they haul a bunch of rock that people are calling, it's just washboarded really bad and doesn't incorporate. So I talked to him briefly, I said, either way, because it's the same money either way, if we spend it in July or August or April, if we slide money here that we don't spend then, and then, maybe to think about it. Maybe hauling some cleaner rock in the spring that will press in April, and you press it in and make a foundation. I just barely mentioned that to him, we didn't have a long conversation, it's just something to think about, and I don't understand a lot about how we can transfer things, but I'd like to study that just a little bit. Maybe spending the same money at a different time would make it last longer, or be better, just an idea. That's all I had, something to think about.
I have one question. And it goes back to January 17th, the hiring of the outside counsel. We've never, nothing's ever been established about the scope of representation. Or nothing has been signed. There's not any agreement between the county and him.
Okay, Carl,
Carl's has asked several times and he keeps saying,
he's not getting it, okay, well, then we need to get on that. I thought Carl was handling it, so we need to
no,
get
so
Carl on that.
there's no, no legal papers have been signed and nothing's been formalized as to why, how much. or anything
I
like
thought
that.
there was, he had an
So,
email,
no.
I down, okay, well, then we need to.
No.
So what do you do?
I guess we need a letter of engagement from what, that was what the wording that Carl used. And then,
Well, he needs to
yeah,
give us that, then, okay, we'll
Yes.
stay on that.
have we
I
even
thought
used
he
him
had
at
that.
all? Because,
I think so, some, I don't know,
Okay.
it is for,
I mean, yeah, because he's not coming. Anyway, whatever.
well, then we need to make sure Carl
Right.
is on there, so,
And he is on it. It's just that we
Not
haven't,
yet.
not getting any results.
okay, and we'll look into that.
Yeah.
Yeah, anything, Tom?
I have a public health, board, introduction type meeting tomorrow at 3 with, Richard, so that's gonna be good, go orientation, I guess, is what you would call that. And then, today I had a Zoom meeting with, SWPCO, yeah, and, it was basically going over some of items of, the, MOU, I believe it was, and the IFA thing that they're talking about for the regional sites and how those all play out. Now, there's a lot of people that aren't for that, so looks like it could be a big cost to the county, depending on how you look at it. So it was just kind of an introduction thing that they spent going through it, and there'll be more meetings, I'm sure, going forward, but it was all new to me, so I was just learning, stuff, trying to keep up, so, but yeah, more to come on that.
And I have called Jamie Cashman
Oh, yeah,
twice,
not getting all that,
no callbacks, so I'm going to go another route and see, because we need to get it done by
Yeah.
April.
we need that signed, yeah.
So yes, so
Yeah,
we're,
we'll do that, make sure that's for the, what's it called?
our,
ARPA,
Yeah,
making sure we've checked all the boxes correct.
yep, I've left messages and no callbacks.
No call, well,
Nope, I'll try
That's
again
not good.
tomorrow and then I will
Well, he'll
call
be there.
ISAC. I know, but
and
I'll,
we, as long as
I
that
may
house
call.
is there, we'll just have to,
I'll probably just call Bill Peterson at ISAC and talk to him,
Yeah.
so.
he said it would be no big deal, but it's gotta get in the house.
Yeah, but we just have to
Gotta
get it
answer the phone,
done,
huh?
yeah. So,
Okay, well, that's good.
yep,
All right, we got the minutes, got a whole bunch of minutes.
want to do the claims first.
Oh, yeah, we can do that. Oh, yeah, one time, sure. Okay, claims, we all had a chance to look at the claims, they're reading all out and everything, all look good. Need a motion to approve claims.
I'll move that we approve the claims.
I'll second.
All right, motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Claims, pay the bills. Okay, now we're the minutes, all those minutes. I looked at the minutes for this, from the 21st, which were sent out, and I thought they looked good to me, so. We have them in.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
The minutes for the 21st, we had emailed out, look good. All those other minutes, did you get all those fixed? Did they send those out, or? Never saw those after they were worked on.
I think she sent them out the other day.
I thought we got them all.
Wait, yeah, I think so. I think she sent them out.
Did you get them all? Did you get, I never saw
Yeah.
them.
I would move that we would approve all of those,
Or they just fixed it with the.
the same way, yeah.
Okay, that's a fixed according to direction, that sounds good to me.
I'd make a second.
All right, Judy made the motion. Bob seconded.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Aye.
And all those in favor?
Oops, I thought you said that.
Oh, that's right. Aye, aye, aye. All right, now we got an easy one, number 11. We have a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, yes.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you for coming.
Can we possibly, like, turn the desk